Hello, everybody. Welcome to Salon Conversations. I'm your host, Lisa, and I have I think it's a fun episode today. It's about the flavour of the team members that you have. Have a look at the painting in the background, if those that are watching on Google. The sun shines on the wall. I don't know what the time is, about lunchtime, and it's just beautiful. It really lights it up. I do love that painting. And when it's pouring rain, it's like she's crying. Those who are only listening, there's a big mural behind me that I painted when I moved into this villa. And yeah, I really love it. It's something that I was going to paint over because I thought it was terrible, but it's not. I just had to calm my farm and just have another go at it, which is pretty much what we need to do with our team members, to be honest. There's times when we're very frustrated and you think, oh my God, I told her, I told her, I told her. And I think, yes, but what did she say? And often the salons I'm working with, they go, well, she didn't say anything. I said, yeah, well, then you don't know. You don't know what went in. You don't know what information. It's like in a restaurant when I say they take your order and then they read it back to you and you go, oh, no, 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 just the one, not the two or whatever. But you have to read it back. And so if your team members are not repeating it back to you, then how do you know? And this is what can be so frustrating. So there's a couple of things I wanted to teach you today. One is that I think that salon team members come in three varieties. And I think vanilla, strawberry, and chocolate. And I think now more than ever, there is an increase in the vanilla, to be honest. And I think that's probably because of COVID. And I think that we already had a lot to think about when it came to navigating people's emotions and those going through divorce and those who've lost someone or those who've got someone sick or losing a job. And so we've got a lot to think about. It's not, people don't just come to us when it's a wedding and they're happy. People come to us when things aren't good. And so I think as a hairdresser and a beauty therapist, you've got to be really across how do you turn the conversation around and how do you just really do your job. And your job isn't to be a therapist. Your job is to care, absolutely. But you have to have the skill of turning it around. And I feel like since COVID, I do believe that there was a lot more things that were pretty hot, like topics like vaccination and not, and shutting down and not, and the amount of people that are dying all around the world. And then people are saying, yeah, but they were dying anyway. Like it's the called influenza. And other people go, no, it's COVID and you need to shut down. So it was a really strong opinion. And I I just think if I knew what I knew now, I probably wouldn't get a vaccination. But I just thought that it was the right thing to do. And I did it probably without much thinking. Yet I had three children. My daughter's a doctor and she just said, yep, everybody needs to be jabbed. That's what happens. And then I have twin boys who are they think differently and they didn't think that was the right thing to do. And I'm thinking, oh, these two, they're going against the grain. And I just thought, just everyone get the injection so we can just open up again and everything will go back to normal. But I was probably uninformed. My daughter, being a scientist, she believes in the medical way of doing things. So that's what she'd had a very different experience than you and I, because she was going to work in scrubs and all sorts of masks and protocol and things. And then my boys, they're cheating and doing fake IDs to get in and out of nightclubs. Hello, like I'm thinking, what's going on? So you can imagine. I'm thinking, are they all my children? Because I don't think you could have had any farther reach on the spectrum of that my children. Anyway, that's probably an overshare. But what I've realised is there's like three types of people, and I find now more than ever, salon owners are having trouble getting through to their team members. And that's why I believe there's just not enough training hours. We're just not spending enough training hours. And so what I did last year was I thought, oh, give them to me and I'll train them, right? I just thought this is a very typical Lisa Conway approach. Give it to me and I'll do it. So what I did was I put together a team machine, which was not for the salon owner. It was only for them to give me a team member. And I thought, just give them to me for 6 weeks. I'll sort them out. And it's not that I didn't help. I'm sure I helped, but I was shocked. I was shocked at how scaredy cat people were to ask the questions of the clients that I was asking them to ask. And it was fascinating. I couldn't believe it. So accidentally, I stumbled onto a problem that I feel like I'm well on the path to solving. And that is that you don't spend enough time with your team members. You don't spend enough time training. And I presumed you did. That's what I did. I just presumed you did. I was onto everything. I was always talking about how to talk to a client. There was so much more talking about the talking, whereas I find there's not enough talking about the talking. And that's where the answer lies. Like if you can't ask your client, what do you use at home? We've got a big problem. We've got a big problem. And that's what I found out. I thought, wow, they're all timid. They're all a bit nervous. They're not, they just lack this innate confidence that I feel like, it's I don't know how long it is, 8 years or 10 years since I've had a salon, but I feel like, and not all of them, but I felt like there was a real swing towards the quiet, which I call the vanilla type of team member. So the vanilla type of team member, and I'll tell you how I categorize them, because I love a process. I love a way that I can explain something. So a metaphor is really good. So if you think of vanilla ice cream, if someone says, yes, I'll have vanilla, right? If you're buying ice creams, that bit of hair on the top of my head's driving me mad. If you were to buy a vanilla ice cream, you don't ask what type of vanilla it is. It's vanilla, right? So it's the opposite to chocolate. If you're buying a bar of chocolate, like what percentage of cacao do you want in it or whatever? Like this is 75%. You should be eating this and blah, blah, blah. Or that you think, yeah, that's milk chocolate. That's not dark chocolate. Like vanilla's vanilla. It's just what it is. It's vanilla, right? We're not going to argue. You could see if it's made of cow's milk or oat milk or something else milk, but it's vanilla. And I feel like there's team members that when you have a chat to them, they don't say anything. They're vanilla. They just go, okay, yep, no worries. And then you come back a week later and you go, how'd you go? And they go, Ed, like about what? And you think, oh my God, I gave you all this knowledge last week. I told you what to do and blah, blah, blah. And basically you just talked and talked and talked and they didn't say anything and they slip under the radar. That's what they want. They don't want to be dissected like a chocolate one does. They almost nod and smile and go away and do nothing. That's vanilla. Those ones drive me mad. I would much prefer the other end. And although I think there's not many, the percentage-wise probably 5%. And then the other end's a chocolate. That's probably 5% too. And I love those because they're very, no, it's not going to work. I can't do that, or clients don't want to do this, and they'll argue the point. And as much as it's annoying, I like it because they're thinking. I can remember this girl years and years ago that it was about rebooking. And so I had met her once before when she owned a salon, and then I don't know what happened, but she never had the salon. I never worked with her then. And then she popped up in one of the salons that I was mentoring in Richmond. And we were talking about rebooking, and she was adamant in front of, I don't know, 5 or 10 team members. I can't remember how many there was, maybe 7. And she was, no, you can't. Clients don't want to rebook. They just don't want to know, blah, blah, blah. And so I've always been a very confident person. So I said, okay, so tell me, when would you ever rebook? I said, would you rebook your nails? No, I walk in off the street. I'm too busy. She had an answer for everything. And she was quite, what would be the word? Prickly. She was quite opinionated and prickly. And she was, maybe she wouldn't be 50, but she'd be almost. And so she was quite, and you could see that some of the vanilla ones in the team were thinking, oh God, this is uncomfortable. I didn't find it uncomfortable at all. I'd much prefer someone argue the point than be ghosting me or be quiet. So anyway, we got to the point where she agreed that if you were going to see a surgeon, you would have to make an appointment and rebook. Otherwise, you wouldn't get in, she said. And I said, that's it. So what the problem was is she was letting people just ring up and come in because she'd squeeze them in. And if she didn't have time, she'd stay back later, she'd squeeze them in. So what I got her to understand is she was training the clients to behave in a particular way because she was rewarding them with it. And you could almost hear the penny drop in her brain. She goes, you know what? I reckon you're right. And I thought, I know I'm right, love, but I didn't say that because I'd be polite when I'm out in public, just say. And she said, wow, that's interesting. I said, she had a really strong following. Her clients were very loyal and she'd taken them from where she'd been before when she shut her salon down and all that. And I said, well, I reckon they follow you. And then the other team members said, yeah, they're so loyal. They don't want anyone but you, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so she started to think that perhaps she could think about it differently. And what I liked about that chocolate flavored person who'll argue the quality of chocolate and where the beans were picked and all that is they are thinkers, right? They might be a little bit overthinking like me, but they'll tell you why it will work or why it won't work. And they're the ones that will really lead the pack once you get them. She went from a nothing percent rebooking, like it was nothing, to, I don't know, 85 in a week. And that's what a chocolate flavored person will do. They'll argue to be heard. They insist that they're heard. And if you can get them to see it, like, build an epiphany bridge so they have the epiphany, then they're on board. And she was. And she said, you're right, no. She was really, she was an interesting character. And she said, I just told them. And do you know what happened? I said, no, what happened? She goes, they just did it. I said, there you go. She goes, because they trust me. I would never ask them to do something. And she was that sort of really loyal person. And so she wasn't rebooking because she felt it was an inconvenience to them for them to know in 6 weeks whether they're not going to be here or where. And I said, well, they can cancel the day before. So whatever she threw at me, I had a rebuttal for, and we had a very robust conversation, and then she changed. That's a chocolate personality. Vanilla person listens, nods, doesn't usually ask a question. You feel like, oh, that was really good because you said everything you wanted to say, and then nothing changes. And I can't believe how many more vanilla people I come across than ever before. And that blew me away because I'm thinking to myself, okay, so I made this document for you. I made this video for you. I've done this, I've done that. And I'm thinking, why can't you get your team members to recommend retail or to rebook or to ask these questions? I just couldn't. I'm just thinking, what else apart from me coming to your salon and training them, which I can't do. So I thought, oh no, I'll do it in a group like this. So I did. And what I realized was the salon owners a bit afraid to push them for an answer or an opinion because they're uncomfortable. They don't want to talk about, the stats. They just want to look after their clients. That's what they tell you. And I think, well, you're not, because if you were, you'd be finding out what they use so that you can get an understanding of where they're up to, and then you can help them. Because if you're, let's say, use a cleanser, if you ask someone what they're cleansing their skin with and they tell you what it is and you think, oh my God, that is a shit product, then you've got an understanding of their knowledge. Whereas when they tell you what it is and they love the product or they don't love the product, you might find that they're using one cleanser, not two. And the same with the shampoo. They're using something that you just think, oh, that is the worst product ever, or that's why your colour's fading. Like, if you can understand where they're at, then you can help them without judgment, but just say, okay, good. This is really helpful. This information is really helpful to me, because then I can see what would be our next step for you, because it's a progress and you just do this and then you do this. And if you like today, I can give you a sample of something that I'd like you to use, but I want you to know that it's not going to suds up like the one that you use, because it's more detergent-like. And then you might say, see this one here, it doesn't have this ingredient, whereas the one you have, when you get home, you have a look and might write down that ingredient, and that's not a good ingredient. It's really not. It's soapy water. I'd prefer you washed your car with it and not your hair. So what happens is then you get an understanding. And what I couldn't believe is that how hard they felt it was to ask this before we get started. So before we get started, I want to ask you 3 questions, because it'll help me to understand where you are in your journey. Impossible. I just couldn't believe it. So the next week I come back and I think, okay, before we get started, I'd just like to say they're a lovely pair of glasses you've got on. And before we get started, that's a great lipstick. And they struggle with that. I'm thinking, oh, my lordy wordy. Not all of them. but a lot did. And I thought, wow, what is it that makes it so hard for them? What is it? And no wonder the salon owners were frustrated. My opinion is you can only go so long and so far with people who won't adjust, who are not prepared to change, who don't want to do what you want to do, and they don't change. Then, well, they're afraid you'll leave. Good, let them leave, because they're not doing their job and they're not looking after your clients, and your clients aren't coming back when they're due to come back. They're not being looked after. So what's the point? That's an average service, and that makes you average. Like, I don't think you want to be average. Who would want to be average? I don't want to be average. So the middle type, which I think is probably 90%, although after doing this, I thought maybe it's 80, they're strawberry, right? Now, strawberry means a pink, right? So they're pink. So are they blueberry, a raspberry? Are they strawberry? Like, there's varieties in there, and everybody's got a different learning style. Some people are visual, and 60% of the population are visual people. Means that you show them. If you draw something, that makes sense. So if I was here with you, I would draw 3 categories, and I'd write vanilla in one, and then I'd put strawberry in the middle, and then I'd put chocolate on the end. And then the chocolate one, I would draw the percentage of cacao, and then vanilla, I'd just say vanilla. And in the middle, I'd draw a strawberry, and then I'd draw a blueberry, and then I'd draw a raspberry and gojo berry or whatever, I don't know, something. But what it does is when you draw something, you draw them in. And I feel like they are the one that you've got to find out a bit more about them. You've got to find out what's their love language or what's their communication style. And I've got trainings on both of those, the archetype, like, is this person a golden retriever? So a golden retriever is it's like a gentle kind of dog. They're not very forceful. They don't like you to growl at them. If you growl at them, they're very offended, right? And then you've got the other end, which is probably a little bit obsessed, if anyone knows what a Kelpie is, or a collie. Like, they just throw that ball and I'll throw it back. Throw it again, I'll throw it back. Throw it again. And they never say, oh, that's enough now. I don't want to play ball. They will do it. That's why they're so good at rounding up sheep. They are so onto it, right? And that's what the chocolate person's like. They're like that. They're like, well, hang on a minute. No, because of this or because of that. And they've got a very strong opinion on things. And that's why the Kelpie is very loyal, but you have to win its loyalty. Whereas the Golden Retriever is a lovely personality to work with, because they're the heart and soul of most salons. Everybody loves them. They get along with everybody, but they can be a bit vanilla at times in that they don't want to let on what they don't know. So they kind of just go a bit silent. They hope you'll go away and do something else that annoys someone else. And so, no, I think passive aggressive is probably too hard a word, but they just want to slip under the radar. And so for all of them, they need a structure, but in particular, you have to ask the golden retriever or the vanilla type personality, what's their plan? What are they going to do? And often when you ask them, they go, I don't know. And you go, well, what if you did know? So you've got to sit with them longer, and you've got to really make it very clear that you will be checking back in. And if you don't get it done, I want you to tell me. You can't come to this meeting next week and say, oh, I forgot. So you have to call it out. And that will make them uncomfortable. But you've got to also connect the reason why you want to do it, right? And I believe the main reason is you want your clients to have the best. And when your clients have the best, they're loyal, they come back. And your column is full with people who know, like, and trust you. So that's really what we're doing it here. And it's really important that you really paint the brightness of the future, because that personality that's a bit vanilla and a bit shy don't change things. They don't really like change. They like it as it is. Whereas in the middle, you might have the poodle type, the fox terrier. You can have golden retrievers in the middle, and you can also have the chocolate as well, right? So they'll be a bit curious and they'll ask a few questions, but they're just not as severe as the chocolate, which is probably the border collie, the foxy a little bit. and they're not as shy or timid as the most timid golden retriever, right? So some golden retrievers are so timid, when you go to say hello, they drop their head and they drop their tail. But there's other golden retrievers that are very outgoing and friendly, but they still are more sensitive than the border collie. And they're generally everybody's friend, whereas the border collie or the kelpie is very devoted to this one situation, one person, and that's how it is. So understanding the type of people that you're working with, whether they're vanilla, strawberry, or chocolate, is really important. And they all require your attention. So what I realized when I did this training, the team machine, which I just thought, just lock it, load it, hand it over, and they'll do it. Didn't work that way. A couple of big mistakes I made. I got to work with the team member and not the salon owner. So I think they thought, when the salon owner would go, how's it going? They'd go, yeah, good, thanks. But the salon owner couldn't interfere. And I think that took away a sense of accountability. And I think that was a mistake. So what I'm doing is I'm refilming it, and I'm going to do it where the team member and the salon owner do it together. So the person would report back to the salon every week and make it more tick the box, download it, scan it and show it to the salon owner. So a lot more check-ins, which I just presume that they would want to do it. Fascinating. So that was something that I learned. And I think at first I was a bit, oh, Lordy, you have to do it like this. Yeah, well, you do apparently. And at first I was a bit annoyed, a bit resentful, and thinking, what's wrong with people today? Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with people today. I feel like our concentration has got less and less and less. And so, they say to me to do a reel, and one time it was 90 seconds. And I'm thinking, who could say anything meaningful in 90 seconds? I wished I had the 90 seconds. They're making me do it in under 30. I'm thinking, what? So it has changed, and I think we've got to change. And so I think these little small bite-sized pieces, I want you to do this by then, and I want you to check in with me and show me. And if you can't do it, you have to tell me before. So that's just how it is. And I don't like it, but I'm also a person who takes medication for ADHD. So clearly I'm another person in the system who struggles with concentration. So you just got to make it one in, all in, that this is what we're going to do and how we're going to help each other if we forget, and all of those things, and just make it a more joyful, fun experience, but make it very clear this is going to happen and I'm not going away until it happens. And so therefore I think it's not a you get special rules. No, we're all in it, one in, all in. And I think that is what I've learnt from doing this, is that it's not the same landscape. It's changed. And I think that more now than ever, team members are timid, and so are salon owners. And I think that you have to train more hours than you do. And I would like you to train a lot more on how you communicate. Yes, skills, absolutely. That's a no-brainer. If somebody can't do a service, then you've got to train them how to do the service. But there's no point getting someone to do a service if they can't feel comfortable to bring up topics and talk about retail and next appointment and all of those things, you just have to be a good communicator. And I believe you can teach it to people, because you think about all the other things you've taught them. So just teach them this as well. You really can, but you have to be working with someone who wants to learn and grow. So when you connect it to what the challenge is, do you feel uncomfortable doing this? Good. Why? And let's talk about it. And then break it up into small pieces where this is what they've got to do. So maybe they need to say, am I a vanilla person? When something's difficult or hard, what do you do? Do you lean in like the strawberries and ask questions, or do you say nothing and hopefully you fly under the radar? Or are you a person who wants more facts, who needs to know more, who's not going to move forward until A, B, and C has been addressed? So it's not about you telling them, it's about them telling you. So listening is really important. That's why we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, because we need to listen twice as hard as we do. And I think for me, rebuilding it will be better because I learnt from my mistakes. That's how we learn. we don't like them so much, but absolutely there is always an improvement, no matter what you do. And if you're not looking at yourself to improve and seeing what it is you can do, then you're just going to be a Kodak store. And I don't want to be a Kodak store. I'm learning Chat GPT at the moment, which is pretty interesting. Sometimes I think she's, I don't know if it's a he or a she, but I think, really, I think you told me that before. But some of the things that it just can shorten and sharpen what you want to say, and it's just brilliant, right? So why wouldn't I use it? Yeah, I don't know why anyone would resist things. What do they say? What we resist will persist, and where your energy goes, where your focus goes, your energy flows, and that is the truth. So if you are resisting spending time with your team, it will persist. These problems will persist. And I believe you have to have at least 5 hours a week training. And that 5 could be on skills, as in service skills, but that 5, you could do another 5 on conversations, role play, know your lines. Anybody who goes on stage needs to know their lines. And so when somebody resists or doesn't want it, what do you say? Like, if you've practiced and you're prepared, then it's not about you. It's not a personal attack on you. If someone doesn't want to make another appointment, there's a reason why. It's okay. But to not do your job is not okay. And so I just think that we have to spend more hours every week. So if you're a salon owner and you're working a lot of floor hours, there's a damn good reason why you are. It's because the clients want you and they don't want your team, and there's your problem. But not being able to train your team because you go, well, she actually does it the same as me. Or does she? Because there's a love and attention to detail or something that you do that your team don't do. And that's where those 5 hours need to be spent, so that if the client was to close their eyes, they wouldn't know the difference. And that's a good point, because I remember training in the salon where you'd get all the girls to sit at the basin and someone would have a shampoo and a scalp massage, and the person having that done had to have their eyes closed. And I wanted the team member to change. So halfway through the shampoo, another person's hand would come on and that person's hand would come off, and then eventually 2, and they could change. And the same with the massage. Now, success meant that the person having the scalp massage or the shampoo could not tell. And that's how consistent you need to be. So if the client has their eyes open, closed, and you're doing a waxing or a facial, you should be able to change people. And this is how I would be doing the training. And the person having the facial or the laser or something would not know. That's how you really measure. So think about your team members and the quiet ones, the vanilla ones who don't say much. They're vanilla, they don't say much. And they're the ones that I think slip under the radar. And then you've got your strawberry ones. They ask a reasonable amount of questions and they're curious. They really need you to hold their hand. And then you've got the chocolate ones, which are like the prevention department, but with the right love and attention and answer all of their questions, they will adjust beautifully. So hopefully that was helpful. Yeah, it's been a good learning for me to realise that we have to change. If we don't change, we get left behind. And that's not me. I don't want to be left out of anything. So have a good day, and I'll see you in the next recording. Bye for now.